All right, so this is a brief overview of working with Biometry the source and routing information into Ableton Live. Do note that this is specific to ECG, but this will work with actually technically anything over OSC the way I've designed it. So if you want to do EEG, you're cool. If you want to do EMG, you're also cool. So similar to Kavi's, we have the Biometry ECG object, and we have a bunch of sends. If you want to look at how this data is being processed, essentially what is happening is it's being converted from an audio signal DSP into a max value. And you can see through this variety of sends and receives. So I do have some extra stuff that I'm not going to quite get into, like such as hysteresis if you want to detect events. But the real meat of what I think you're going to be wanting to do is sending data over OSC into Ableton Live. So one note is that for Ableton Live, you'll want the values normalized between a value of 0 and 1. I recommend for convenience that, so for example, we have the raw signal, which if I look at the received data, we can see that these values, because it's an audio signal, oscillate between, it's signed, so negative and positive. So essentially, you want to make sure that you use scale or ZMAP to convert it. Similar for HRV, I was getting quite a range of values. I'm just running a simulation right now, by the way. All I'm getting at is you want to convert everything to 0 and 1. So the next important thing is because we're using OSC, we have a slash, and this is extremely important that you have the slash there, followed by the name of the message you want to send, the packet. So we're using UDP send. We have a local IP address, and here's the port. Now, in terms of Ableton, there's 3 primary tools that I've created, and this is different than when we had our meeting, just as a heads up. I took the best of everything, some of my research, and distilled it into this. So I hope you enjoy it. So the first one I'm going to give you is this Biometry MIDI note trigger. So we can see that we set the port, and it's really, really simple the way I've designed this. You can just type in the name of the address that you want to receive. For detecting notes, I usually find cooked is what I would use. And what we see here is we have a note that we could set, the MIDI note, we can set the velocity, we could set the duration. And so if you want to test what the note sounds like, you can hit trigger. I just have it going to this instrument rack, and I do have a couple sends going. Okay, you can put in any instrument you want, but to actually have it run, I have something called active, and this allows you, if because this one note is that this isn't running with Ableton's like play, sequencing. It's kind of just going on its own. So if you want to activate it, you just hit active, and I think you could hear that, hopefully. All right, so the next thing about this all is what I did here to detect the transients of any of the signal coming in is I created an envelope filter. So you could actually literally drag the threshold for when it starts to trigger. You'll also notice there's a re-trigger time. So that's a way I worked with debouncing the data coming in. I had a kind of hysteresis approach before where I would have to go above a high and low threshold to re-trigger. But this allows you to kind of use time to gate re-triggering notes if that's an issue. Also, you'll notice, hope I didn't get ahead of myself, to the left of these. So this yellow signal coming in is this kind of like post-processing. So you can see this gray signal, which is the original signal, but the way I designed it was that if you need to do, like an envelope follower, any massaging of the signal so that it's triggering and initiating the events you want. So we have rise, which lower, we can see that I'm boosting the peaks. Yeah. So, you know, things like that. So you don't have to get too into the max to do it. This should all be available in the UI. Fall, we can see that it's averaging it out more over time. And even like envelope followers in Ableton, I have a delay. So what this is doing is once it triggers the note, you could actually specify a delay in before the event happens. So if we look at this, I make the delay something like, oops, you gotta kind of put it down a bit. Maybe 100, or let's try 400 milliseconds. Okay, maybe it's harder to hear, but it should be delaying the message. And I've also set it to work in milliseconds. Let's turn that off for a moment. It works in milliseconds as well as max, like just musical notation. And one thing you'll notice is you could actually trigger between the two. Seems to sometimes double trigger, I think, when you change delay specifically. So just be aware of that if you're doing anything real time. All right, so the next one is a bit simpler, and both of these effects are actually essentially the same. The only difference is that one is the MIDI effect, meaning that it only works on MIDI MIDI tracks in Ableton Live. And similar, we have the port. You just type in the address of whatever you want to receive. So maybe I want HRV, and note that you have to make sure you spell it exactly the same as what you have as your prep end message before UDP send here. So we go back to Ableton Live and click off, and you should see the value going, even if it's a bit low. Cool. So, and then from here you could just like map it. Or I could map it. I'm just gonna see what happened. Not sure what happened there, but I've hit map and now low pass. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go use cooked signal because it's really easy to see kind of what's going on. Cooked sig. There we go. All right, so I'll turn on the audio just so we got a bit of sound. And maybe I'll turn down the volume a bit. So we have the value coming in. We can also change the smoothness. Right. Okay. We also have minimum, so that we can see that the frequency is going between 0 and 20 hertz. So if I wanted to go within a specific range, like a low range, we can set it that way. And we can also reduce it to the maximum. Right? And this all works, again, in real time. Finally, we have curve, which is an exponential curve. So if you want to play with, you know, making it more logarithmic, you can play with that. Okay. And yeah, so that's pretty much that. If you want to temporarily unmap it or bypass the mapping, you'll notice to the left here, there's a yellow button. Just click that. And we still hear the note triggered, but we can see that our frequency for our low pass filter, you know, is not currently mapped to the signal coming in. And again, you can just turn it back on. Oh, I stopped the note. And that's all great. So one note is that I did make this actually is a general custom address OSC mapper. I haven't quite seen one designed like this, so it's I think a pretty decent general purpose tool. I'm going to release to the public, so yeah. Finally, if you want to remove a mapping, hit this X, and that unmaps it. So what's great about the system is you can try different mappings, you can try different configurations here. You should be able to save presets. And you could also enable and disable them based off your OSC addresses. So finally, this is the MIDI effect. If I go to an audio track, which it's actually exactly the same. It's just an audio effect, and that's the way Ableton Live designs its tracks. So, I mean, it's going to do the same thing, okay? But just to show you that it works here. So I have my cook signal coming in. Maybe I want to map it to my delay, dry and wet. And if I had an audio signal, I'm going to admit I actually don't have like a real-time input here. All right, so I just quickly dragged in this break loop. Okay, and I'm just gonna set that to loop here. Cool. Okay, so okay. And one really important note, make sure that your port matches. This one is set to 799. Oops. Okay, and we can see the values coming in. And I'm going to map it to delay. And again, this might not be the best example here. Just setting it to the wet and dry, but I think you understand kind of what I'm getting at here, hopefully. All right, so let me know if you have any questions via email. And I think, yeah, I hope you enjoy this. And yeah, good luck.